See reflections on the water, more than darkness in the depths. See him surface and never a shadow.
Hi, I'm John and welcome to Lucky Losers, the channel with content for all. Now, you may be wondering what all that James Bond fuss is about at the start, but that's right, I actually had a car, a Volvo, which appeared in Goldeneye. Honest, it's true, I had such a car in the past. So, I'm going to tell you all about it. Stay tuned. So it was October 1995 and by then my wife and I had already made plans for moving over to Poland, and we were looking for a car with left-hand drive. And so my wife and I looked around in the papers. At that time there was no online car market, and we came across this Volvo estate. The price sort of suited us. It was around below £1,000, and in the ad it didn't state that that it had been in the James Bond film which was to premiere in November 1995. So when we arrived, that's the first thing the young man told us. He was wearing the Goldeneye t-shirt. He was actually a stuntsman, or I guess he drove the car, and he informed us that that car would appear in 2 or 3 particular scenes, and he was right. And it's sort of proof for me that car did appear. That was the car which appeared in Goldeneye, which I saw in January of 1996 in our local cinema in Poland. In fact, the car was standing outside that cinema as we were watching the film, but I never told anybody apart from my close relatives about that fact. So the car which had been in the film was actually standing outside that cinema. So that was proof enough for me that that car had appeared in Goldeneye, or was to appear in Goldeneye. So I paid below £1,000, I don't remember exactly, and sure enough, a few weeks later we set off for the car for the long drive over to Poland. The car was fully laden with all our possessions, or the ones we could take, the ones we could transport by car. In fact, it was overloaded, so we had to take out some of the stuff, but we were still driving heavy. I was the driver, my wife as my passenger. This is the photo of our first day in Poland after we had arrived in Poland on the 15th of November 95. They look similar, and apart from that, what can I say about this car? Well, it wasn't without its problems, obviously. What else can I say about the Volvo 265 GLE, which we owned? It was the last car we had in the UK and the first car that I actually owned in Poland. I do have quite positive memories of it. The fact that it got us to Poland, I used it as an everyday car, and I did go on some trips. Our eldest son was born in February 1996, so it was a useful car, especially when you had a small baby. So I do have some really fond memories of that car. On the plus side, it was extremely comfortable to drive. Yep, safe, because being a Volvo you always felt safe. It was relatively quiet although there was a bit of blowing exhaust, I guess, that caused a bit of a problem. So I mean, that was the good side. It was powerful. It had a powerful engine, 2.9 litres, but it had, of course, its downside, and that is that it was heavy on the fuel, something like 15 litres per 100 kilometres, so that's something like below 20 miles per gallon. So it was really thirsty on the fuel. So what else? I think I wrote down one or two things. I forgot to mention on the good side that it was a very spacious car. So there was the issue with the fuel consumption, and because of that, because of the costs, high costs of fuel, I decided to install the LPG gas installation to cut down on that, but that wasn't such a good idea because it led to some other problems, namely ignition problems. The car sometimes didn't want to start, sometimes it stopped in the middle of nowhere. I had a problem restarting it. That happened once. So it started okay on a cold engine, and I only got that sorted out when I took out the gas installation, and then it just ran on fuel. There was also a problem with a leakage of gear oil, rather not gear oil but brake oil, so that became quite an issue as well. So those were the bad points of the car, and in the end I decided to sell it. That was in May 1998. I sold it for about £1,000, but here in Poland. I forgot to mention that the air conditioning didn't work, but I guess all I needed to have done there was to top it up, simply. So that was the other issue. We had the air conditioning for 2 or 3 years and it just needed topping up. I never came to think about that. So that's how the car went its separate way. I did see it a few times in the Upper Silesia region for about a year or two after that, but I don't know what happened to the car. Perhaps it was scrapped. No idea. I never told the owner that it was a James Bond car, and in any case he wouldn't have believed me, I guess. Such is life. As I've already promised, here I'd like to show you the scenes the car appeared in that particular James Bond film, Goldeneye.
Goldeneye, not lace or leather.
Now, just a little bit about the Volvo 260 series story, just to find out about the history of these really unique cars. So it's the only Volvo I ever owned. I did used to love Volvos as a child as well. My auntie in London had one, a friend of my mother's had one, so I really did like those cars, and perhaps in the future, who knows, I'll own another Volvo. Well, that's all for today's video. I'll be back again with another video about my cars, and it will be about the first new car I ever had in my life. So that will be in the next of the series of John and his cars. So once again, thanks again for watching, and stay tuned. Love ya. Bye.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Lucky losers. Oh lucky losers, oh lucky losers. Lucky, lucky, lucky Lou. Oh lucky losers, oh lucky losers. Lucky, lucky, lucky Lou. Oh lucky losers, oh lucky losers. Lucky, lucky, lucky Lou. Oh lucky losers, oh lucky losers. Lucky, lucky, lucky Lou. Thank you.
See reflections on the water, more than darkness in the depths. See him surface and never a shadow. On the wind I feel his breath. Goldeneye, I found his weakness. Goldeneye, he'll do what I please. Goldeneye, no time for sweetness, but a bitter kiss will bring him to his knees. See reflections on the water, more than darkness in the depths. See him surface and never a shadow. On the wind I feel his breath. Goldeneye, I found his weakness. Goldeneye, he'll do what I please. Goldeneye, no time for sweetness, but a bitter kiss will bring him to his